Men, listen to me. Preaching is more than just you doing a fine work of exegesis. Preaching is more than just you getting the grammar right and communicating truth. Preaching is more than that. Preaching is about life and death, heaven and hell. Preaching is not just the communicating of truth, but it is urging men. It is begging men. It is pleading with men to take the truth they have been given and to live according to that. Preaching is an extremely dangerous thing for both the preacher and the hearer. It is dangerous for the preacher because if he preaches another gospel, he stands condemned. If he commits a lesser crime and misinterprets the scripture, whatever he builds upon that bad interpretation will be burned on the day of judgment as wood, hay, and stubble. So preaching is a dangerous thing for the preacher, but it's also a dangerous thing for the hearer. Every bit of truth that we are given, for that truth we are responsible. And so be cautious when you preach. Don't just lay that out there before men and say, this is the truth. But be like the Apostle Paul, who although apostle demonstrates here a prophetic and a pastoral heart, he urges them, he beseeches them, he pleads with them. Every time you give them a truth, how then shall we live? You will not be judged for the amount of truth in your head, you must tell them, but the amount of truth you have lived with your life. Sometimes I go and I hear men who boast to be great expository preachers, and I feel as though I've just gone through a New Testament introduction. They've told me about history and how big the city of Colossae is and all sorts of things. But I need more than just background. I need to hear a voice within a voice. I need to hear preaching. And when I hear preaching, then I need to be urged to act upon it. In this day of eloquent men and tellers of jokes and men with whimsical personalities, we need men who see the weighty matters of truth and scripture. And when they stand up before people, they can see eternity in that man's face. They know he is a man who, more than being before people, is always before God. So when you preach, when you're going to tell someone truth or what they should do, you must plead with them to do it. We live in a society, a culture that is so superficial, that doesn't understand the weightier matters of eternity and life, the importance of a Godward life. And so when you come to them in the pulpit with truth, let them know this is serious. This task that you have been given, you're not to be a comedian, a narrator, or just a teller of stories. You're not just to be a professor. Sometimes if we're preaching on the streets, we may see the lost multitude before us, and we might feel like Whitefield, who told the crowd, if you will not weep for your own souls, then I will weep for them.
You will not be judged by the amount of truth in your head, but by the amount of truth you have lived with your life. We need to hear a voice within a voice. I need to hear preaching. Paul Washer. And Washer continues, this preaching task that you have been given, you're not to be a comedian, a narrator, you're not just to be a professor.